please welcome Cecilia Totino, who will sing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good morning, Kennedy. On behalf of the entire student government body, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's virtual pep rally. Today, we celebrate all our student athletes and their achievements, and while doing so, we celebrate our school's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Today's program has been made possible by the terrific students on Cougar TV. It has also been organized by the student government's outstanding events coordinators. They will be hosting today. Please welcome Victoria DeLeo and Sydney Maza.
Hello, Kennedy, and welcome to today's special virtual pep rally. As Dylan said, today we celebrate all our student athletes and their achievements. And while doing so, we celebrate our school's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. You may wonder to yourself, why celebrate that during a pep rally? The answer is simple. Sports have always been an appropriate forum for athletes to express themselves. Sports have also become an expressive medium promoting social change and creating awareness. Sports always offer the right fields for protest, and enlightened athletes have proven to be agents of change through that expression. The progress of this nation was significantly advanced with the actions of Muhammad Ali, Jackie Robinson, Billie Jean King, Roberto Clemente, and many other athletes. So today, as we celebrate our athletes, we talk to them about their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We hope you enjoy the program. Are you ready? Well, let's go. Today, we start our pep rally with a special interview by juniors Michelle Brown and Desiree Regatte, who host our new monthly Diverse Dialogue series. Their new monthly program provides students, teachers, and administrators with an opportunity to openly discuss important issues like race, gender equity, and other important topics. This afternoon, they will host their April event by leading a dialogue on anti-Semitism in the library starting at 2:15 p.m. It's all a part of our district's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. This morning, we introduced the two of them as they interview Ms. Nicole Greenan from Erase Racism, a regional civil rights organization based on Long Island that exposes and addresses the devastating impact of historical and ongoing structural racism. We hope you enjoy it.
Good morning, Kennedy High School. Thank you for joining us for this DEI interview. My name is Michelle Brown.
And I'm Desiree Rigo. Today we'll be interviewing Nicole Grennan, the community educator at Erase Racism. Hello, Nicole. So, we have a few questions for you today. We'd like to start by asking you to describe to everyone what Erase Racism does and your position at the organization, as well as what inspired you to begin in that line of work.
Sure. So Erase Racism is a regional nonprofit. We do a couple of different things. So our main issue that we focus on is structural racism in housing and education, which are two very related fields. So we look at making policy changes, advocating for communities that are impacted by structural racism, and trying to remove the structural barriers that are in people's way when it comes to getting fair housing and fair education. And my role is community educator organizer. So I do work educating communities that are impacted and communities that are not impacted, and trying to build a broad understanding of what structural racism is on Long Island, how it impacts our region specifically. And also organizing people to mobilize for equity. So getting them to call their legislators, or like with students, how can we build projects that foster equity in their school communities, and how can they address their administrators with these issues, stuff like that.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, our question is, what are some ways in which someone could be a good ally for those dealing with racism?
Sure. So this is a really interesting question. I guess I would say that the most important part of allyship is centered accountability. So like an ongoing ability to look at yourself, ask if the things that you're doing to try to be an ally are actually mitigating harm. Are they like centering the impact of potential racism on other people? So like we have reactions in moments of tension, right? And instances of racism are usually quite tense. And it's especially true if we're the one who has done something wrong. Sometimes we try to be an ally, we have really good intentions, but the impact is still harmful. So like I would say that the most important part of being a good ally is being able to take a step back, take a deep breath, and like look objectively at a situation, especially if you're the one who's been criticized. But even if someone comes to you with an instance and they're like, hey, I really want to talk to you about this racism that I just experienced, being able to think about the way that you might have implicit biases that you couldn't control, and how that might impact your response, and knowing that you don't have to be perfect and you can actually honor your mistakes because they're just points of growth and learning, and being willing to listen.
Thank you for the advice. Our next question for you is, how do you believe that us as a school community can aim to combat discrimination and promote equity?
Sure. So I think that being a school community is not that different than being another community when it comes to combating discrimination and promoting equity, in that like it's always important to do this work from a place of love. So like centering love in all your actions and the well-being of yourself, but also the people around you. And through that, like helping people to understand the urgency of the problem, the complexity of the problem, and fostering a sense that like we are in community and everyone will be better if we can address issues of discrimination or equity. And I even, so I received an email the other day, and I'm just gonna like read a quote that was from the email because I feel like it really gets at the heart of this question. Affirming the truth that each person is precious reminds us that love is accountability. When we love people, we want them to grow. When we believe in people, we know they are worthy of becoming more just. And when we acknowledge the legitimacy of all pain, we recognize and interrupt intergenerational patterns and cycles of trauma that are replicating it. So racism is traumatic, right? For everyone involved, for the people who are doing the harm, but also the people who are on the receiving end of the harm. So it benefits the entire community if we're able to address it together.
Thank you. And our next question is, how can one be more cognizant of their own prejudice before they lead to discrimination?
So this is a tough one, and I think it takes ongoing work. Like it's not a box to be checked. Like we'll all have to be doing this for the rest of our lives because we're raised in a world where we develop biases from a very young age, and we couldn't control that. You know, we're just getting messages from pop culture and media and social media, and the lessons we learn in school, and we're getting all these messages that are informing our implicit biases. And the thing about implicit bias is that you don't know you have it. I don't know if I have it until I start really thinking critically about it. So the first step is to figure out what biases you might have. And there's a couple of different ways. Like if you look up implicit bias tests online, a million things will come up. And that's honestly a good place to start. And then it kind of goes back to what I was talking about before, is also just being able to listen. So if someone is comfortable enough to tell you that you did something that made them uncomfortable, first of all, that's really big that they felt comfortable enough to share that. So just instead of reacting defensively, which is just a natural desire to defend yourself because nobody wants to believe that they have prejudice or that they caused harm, but being able to pause and say, wait, let me think about what this person is saying. Let me honor what they're saying, and the possible impact that I may have had, even if I didn't intend for that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, totally. All right, so our next question for you is a topic that we had spoken about at one of our previous events. So we wanted to ask you, how do you think that students could talk to their family and friends about refraining from making insensitive jokes and about microaggressions in a respectful manner?
Sure. So some advice that was given to me that I thought was really useful is if someone, makes a joke that it is harmful or plays into some trope or stereotype, like literally just asking the person, why is that funny? And having them explain it. And that usually demonstrates like, okay, this is actually not funny. This is something really harmful that you just said. But then as far as microaggressions, of course, it's very hard to call them out because they're passed off like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's just a joke. So I would say that if you feel comfortable enough with a person to point out their microaggressions or that something they said maybe was harmful, doing so in a way that's like, there's calling out and then there's calling in. So calling out is being like, hey, stop what you're saying. That's really harmful. Calling in is like, I'm going to open up a conversation about this and I want you to see why what you're saying is harmful. So being able to read a situation and like your relationship with the person who you're speaking to, like how close are you? Are you comfortable having a conversation about it? Is it not going to cause you more harm? Asking those questions of yourself. But I definitely think it's important to not let it go unaddressed. So either calling it out or calling it in, but regardless, pointing out that made you uncomfortable.
Awesome. Thank you for your advice. And our one final question is, to what extent do you believe that counter movements are harmful to making progress in our nation's fight for equity?
Sure. The way that this was put to me, which made the most sense, is if your neighbor's house is on fire and a fire truck comes to go put out the house, you're not going to say to the firemen, hey, you need to put water on my house too. Like that would never happen. That would be ridiculous and all your things would be ruined. So it would be quite counterproductive. And the issue of Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter versus whatever you want to insert in there is very much like that. So the United States has a history of structural racism and structural violence, particularly anti-Black. But there's obviously many groups that have been marginalized by the United States government. And so that community is the one that is in distress and that needs the help. And so that's why it's Black Lives Matter. So if you truly believe that all lives matter, then you should be sensitive to the fact that Black Americans are calling out for help, for structural help, structural support, and systems change.
Thank you. That was a really nice way of putting it. I would just like to also thank you for being here with us today and ask you, do you have any final words or advice for any of us students in coping with racism?
It's a massive issue. There's so much work to be done, so many issues to untangle, and it's embedded everywhere, which makes it more daunting. That as long as we keep working together and having these conversations and challenging each other in ways that are respectful and loving, that things will change for the better and that the future is really in your hands. I work with students. We do some student organizing, and the optimism that students have, I think, is what will carry us into a new age of equity and equality.
Thank you so much. That is all the questions that we have for you today, but we really appreciate you being here to tell us about racism and personally about your personal advice and experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed that terrific interview, and we hope to see you after school in the library. It is now time to introduce our fall athletes. This year, both volleyball teams and our girls soccer team earned playoff bids. In addition, our girls district swim team won a division championship prior to competing in the counties. Let's hear it for our fall athletes. This is the boys varsity soccer team. The team captain is Connor Thier. The seniors are Joe Balik, Andrew Broder, and Eric Gianaris. The head coach is Coach Bisk, Coach DeSanto, Coach Stein, and Coach Grassa. The team record is 2-4. Their season highlights is their 6-0 win versus Elmont. Next up is the girls varsity volleyball team. Their team captain is Cameron Montalbano. Their seniors are Anna Hillis, Abby Kazan, Julia Levine. Their season highlights: the Cougars kicked off their season by defeating district rivals Calhoun with one of the largest rosters in years for the program. Each win is a team effort, and the girls are looking forward to finishing the season strong, moving into playoffs. Next up is boys varsity volleyball. The team captains are Ryan Hegna, Andrew DeFusco, and Josh Farber. The head coach is Dennis Ringel, and they have a team record of 4-5. Next up is girls tennis. Their team captains are Julie Polowitz, Sierra Schlesinger, Jordan Sherman, and Stamatia Papazis. And their coach is Mr. DiGatano. Next, we have girls varsity soccer. Team captains are Isabella Pace, Juliana Mazzaferro, Blake Banner, and Hannah Samuels. They also have seniors Ariana Peckham, Alexa Scheinkopf, and Rachel Moore. And their head coach is Coach DiFilippo with assistant coach Life. Next up is varsity football. Their seniors are Daniel DiFilippo, Chris Burrito, Zaid Kayla, Jeremy Cardenas, Jonathan O'Malley, Justin Rosenfeld, Thomas Glynn, Anthony Savello, Julian Tavalero, Justin Gallant, Ryan Shelton, Andrew Oken, Jagger Vargas, John Talanian, Brian Dorn, Jake Sherman. Team captains are Ryan Droughty, Matt Cohn, Marcus Molina, and John Leone. Head coach is John McGuire, and assistant coaches are Jason Hoover, Dylan Clifford, and Ryan Walsh. Boys varsity badminton is up next. Team captains and seniors are Dylan Cohen, Zach Schwartz, Connor Gibson, Seth Gorlick, Mason Waldinger, and Andrew Kessler. Their head coach is John DeLolio. The highlight of the season was that they were able to play a season. Next up is varsity cheer. Seniors are Rhiannon Bradley, Jaden Fahey, Olivia Haynell, Alexa Corcamelis, Jolie Hatena, Madison Livingston, Anna Marino, Sydney Sather, Sophia Silcox, Emma Tiongson, Taylor Voss, and Samantha Dugan. The coach is Miss Linda Leonardo. They loved being able to participate at the football games and perform at their virtual pep rally. Next up is varsity kick line. Captains are Lexi Baldinger and Jordana Hefez, with seniors Jessica Mark and Emily Kilman. Their coach is Miss Roth. Next up is girls swim, and the highlight of their season was winning Division B championships. Next we have boys swim. From Kennedy, team captains and seniors are Blake Goldberg and Julian Munzer. Head coach is Robert Kafer, and assistant coach Andre Donaldson. They had a team record of 6-0, and it's their second season over the last 3 years being undefeated and conference champions. And now for track and cross country. The seniors are Brandon Root, Eric Gallant, Jessica Nakame, and Maya Spottiswood. The teams are coached by Mr. Chris Baker and Mr. Chris Mamone. Congratulations again to all our fall sports teams. As part of our DEI-themed pep rally, we talked to some of our senior athletes about the importance of creating a culture of honesty and inclusion and the importance of combating stereotypes. Here's what they had to say.
As a student athlete in Kennedy High School, you're choosing to take your time and just be an extension of the school itself after school. So you have to make sure that you're using the key elements that we're taught as students every single day.
Honestly, I believe that you need to be very inclusive with your teammates, especially in team sports like football. I had to learn that you can't really do everything on your own, no matter how good or bad you are. You kind of just got to build off the rest of your team.
I think obviously there should be honesty, respect, and inclusion for others in any environment. But especially with sports, you want everyone to feel comfortable at all times, and it should definitely be a safe space where everyone can just have fun and be who they are no matter what.
It's super important to create an environment where anyone can leave the classroom and play with their team and just forget any other issues they have at home or in the class.
Especially in sports, you can't really judge someone based on how they look or how they present themselves. Sports is all about your talent ability, and you can't really judge that on the outside.
So in order to have a successful team and be successful in the sport, I believe that inclusivity is important to that.
So I think, especially me, myself, playing lacrosse, it's pretty much been labeled as like the rich white kid sport, and being a half Indian and clearly not white, I feel like I've challenged stereotypes because not too often you see an Indian kid playing lacrosse, and I think that's important to get diversity and different populations into sports that have been labeled like this.
A lot of times there's less emphasis placed on my sport compared to that of boys' sports. So I like to challenge that stereotype by giving it my all and challenging the game, even if no one's watching.
As a cheerleader, you're told that like you're not really an athlete, but we've challenged that again and again as we went to nationals 4 years in a row in Orlando, Florida.
Well, I think that we all kind of like are different in our own ways, whether it be like sexuality or culture. So I think it's very important to kind of like learn about everything about everyone and find out what people are interested in.
Becoming a more of a family type atmosphere, you know, joking around with one another. You couldn't really hang out during the COVID times, but keeping in touch through group chats.
I think it's important to challenge stereotypes, again, to prove to other people that this is not true because, and really show them why it isn't, or voice your opinions on a certain topic.
We'll have more interviews with our senior athletes later. But first, we introduce our winter sports athletes. This winter, both our wrestling team and girls basketball team went undefeated. The season was short and didn't include a playoff. Who knows what that would have brought? Here are our winter athletes. Starting with varsity wrestling. The team captains are Eric Schindel, Marcus Molina, Daniel DiFilippo, and John Leone. Other seniors are Thomas Glynn, Paul Bagnasco, Ryan Dorn, Aiden Short, and captain AJ Pezzaruso. The head coach is Brian DiGaetano, and the assistant coaches are Peter Barros, Joe Vanneman, and Jack Mangiani. The team had an undefeated season with an 8-0 record and are conference champions. Next is girls varsity basketball. The team captains are Rachel Nawson, Cameron Montalbano, and senior Hannah Samuels. The head coach is Mallory Freely, and the assistant coach is Ryan Pastuche. The girls had an undefeated season with an 8-0 record and are conference champions. Next is boys varsity basketball. The seniors are Adam Lieberman, Tyler Yablon, Matt Cohn, Ryan Hegna, Brandon Root, and Ryan Shelton. The head coach is Mr. Rory Block, and the assistant coaches are Mr. Mike Gaddis and Mr. Connor Dorney. And now the district ice hockey team. The Kennedy seniors are Liam Dorn, Patrick Mingione, Donald Romano, and Sean Hayes. The head coach is Mr. Pat Raglio. Lastly, we have the rifle team. Callie Blair and Andrew Kessler. The head coach is Mr. Ed Martinez. Congratulations to our winter athletes. And now, for a special performance, please welcome our Kennedy Kickline and varsity cheerleaders.
Now and then, I think about me now and who I could have been. And then I picture all the perfect that we lived. Till I cut the strings on your tiny violin.
What would a pep rally be without a cheerleading and kick line performance? Great job, girls! And now some more of our interviews with our senior athletes on the importance of inclusion and acceptance. Enjoy!
Of course, there's cases where not everyone shares the same ideas, but I think as a team, and especially with our girls soccer team now, we're all very similar and we're all very respectful of each other, and we always work together no matter what.
A lot of times on a team there will be differing opinions or perspectives just because that's how teams work. But I like to make sure to include everyone in their perspective and their point of view and to hear everyone's opinion, because I know I would want my opinion to be heard as well.
Not everyone's goals are the same. I started out wanting to be, a county champ, a state champ, and my journey, didn't reach as far as I wanted it to, but that was always the end game. Whereas I feel like some of the other guys just wanted to be on the team to be on the team. They wanted to enjoy the family atmosphere. They wanted to have a good workout. They wanted to stay in shape. They wanted to get better at themselves and not really better at the sport. And that was, I think, hard for me at first to understand that people are different and that everyone's goals are a little different than your own.
We always had to make sure that people were paying attention and wanted to be there to represent their school rather than wear a uniform or just be a part of something.
In basketball practice, when my coach wrote up a certain play or had a certain strategy for a game that I specifically did not agree with and did not think would work, but I think working with her, we developed a good plan to practice.
Playing time sometimes becomes an issue with different teammates, who you think should play, if you should play, and I think just part of overcoming that obstacle is just promoting a positive team environment, whether you're on the bench or on the field. Just instead of worrying about who's playing and who's not, just let the coaches handle that and work as a team just to promote a positive culture.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion are all elements that make up a true team. You're not going to learn anything from other people if you're all exactly the same.
I believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion are key parts to achieving any goal, not only in sports or in school, but in everyday life.
So to me, diversity, equity, and inclusion are just three ideas that promote pretty much just getting everyone involved, whether it be different populations throughout the school, and celebrating each and every person's differences.
I know a lot of different people of different sexualities, cultures, and I think it's very important that everyone treat each other the same, and that I think it's beautiful how everyone believes their own things and does their own thing, and then you can all come together and learn about it.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, it means a lot to me because I think it's important that we judge people for who they are and take into account all different perspectives and backgrounds so that we could better ourselves and better the community.
We want to thank the senior athletes who sat down with us to be a part of those interviews. Thank you for being reflexive and thoughtful in your replies. And finally, our spring athletes. We are so excited for them as they start their spring season. Last year, they were the ones to lose their season at the start of this pandemic. We can't wait to see them on the field in a couple of weeks. Let's hear it for our spring athletes.
Starting off with softball. The seniors are Jessica Nakame and Morgan Tesser, with their head coach as Krista Thorne. The girls are going to have a phenomenal season. Next is the boys varsity baseball team. The seniors are Sammy Ostroff, Jake Sherman, Jacob Rosenkratz, John Robinson, Chris Goler,
and John O'Malley.
The head coach is Mr. Mike Gaddis, and the assistant coaches are Mr. Brian DiGattano
and Mr. Dylan Clifford.
The team's first game is on May 4th against Southside High School. Go boys! Next is the boys varsity tennis. The seniors are Matthew R. Stark, Aiden Benjamin, Dylan Cohen, Andrew DeFusco, Justin Gallant, Connor Gibson, Seth Gorlick, Jacob Kamler, Andrew Kessler, Harrison Tulchner, and Mason Waldinger. Their head coach is Mr. Biss, and assistant coach is Mr. Sinelli.
And now, girls golf. The senior is Cecilia Hayes, and the head coach is Mr. Helmut Schleif.
Next is boys golf. Their team captain is Don Romano, the coach is Mr. Russell Lella, and the team's first match this season is on May 3rd versus Calhoun High School. Next is girls varsity lacrosse. The seniors are Rhiannon Bradley, Victoria Dragonetti, the head coach is Miss Mallory Freely, and assistant coach is Mr. Ryan Pastouche. The team's first game is on May 1st against Freeport.
And now, boys varsity lacrosse. The seniors are Gianluca Carvello, Eric Generis, Jaden Mogilevsky, and Manny Zelensky. The team is coached by Mr. Craig Papak, and the assistant coach is Mr. Ryan Walsh.
Next is girls badminton.
The seniors are Leanne Collins, Anna Hillis, Jean Mann, and Joanna Vaccaro. And the head coach is Mr. John DeLelio. That concludes our virtual pep rally. Don't turn this off yet though. Please take a moment to read the credits to see the names of all the terrific students on Cougar TV who produced this program. And if you see them later, thank them. Thank you for watching. Go Cougars!
Watch it on a cell phone or on a computer screen. But wherever you're watching, watch Cougar TV.